So what did they call you?
Bullet. Yeah, I went by nickname Bullet.
What are you incarcerated for, and how long is your sentence?
Okay, so I'm doing 31 years right now. I actually started out with 10 years for bank robbery. And as you know, which obviously you know because I shot you my charge sheet, but for those of you that don't know, I was doing my sentence and for my 10 years, and I picked up a RICO case, racketeering case, which I was indicted basically for being a shot caller for P9 and AB, and basically picked up several other charges, extortion, murder, solicitations for order and hits, and also murder conspiracies, and several other gang-related assaults along the way. And that's it. I'm doing 31 years on top of that 10 right now. So that's it.
Where are you from right here on the streets?
I'm from Anaheim, California. So
Orange
like
County.
I said, Orange County, Anaheim, California. Like I said, when I was a kid, I grew up up north a little bit where my father was from, but ended up moving to Orange County and staying there.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Do you or did you belong to any type of gangs, groups, organizations?
Yes, I did. I belonged to the gang called P9 from about 1992 on until about 2004 when I became ARYANBROTHERHOOD. And that's it. Those are the only two gangs that I've ever been part of.
Okay.
Yeah, so like I was saying, we ended up moving to a motel with my pops, and because my grandparents were struggling, so me and my dad ended up going to a storage place, and my dad cut the lock off of storage, and there was a shoebox full of cash, and it was pretty much on. So my dad bought us new trucks and a Cadillac for himself. And I was only 14 at the time. I didn't even have a license. So soon after, me and my brother ended up getting expelled from high school for stabbing a dude. We got in a little melee with my neighbor. There was this chick that lived next door, and her boyfriend, he was from another school in Huntington Beach, and there was just a lot of trash talk going back and forth. So we ended up telling him to bring his friends, and we met at a little spot across from the high school, Magnolia High School, it was a place called Dos Amigos. And so they pulled up in a Jaguar, and there were a bunch of jocks, from HB. And so they came up, and we ended up getting in a little melee, and dude ended up getting stabbed. So, we all got away. Everybody ran and got away and stuff. And, next thing you know, the cops, were on our tail. So, me and my brother were dodging them as long as we could, and then that finally caught up to us, and, they were doing their little investigation. And so that went on, and the dude was black, so, they made a big deal out of it at the time. I wasn't even a skinhead or part of nothing at the time. But, Orange County is well known for that kind of stuff, so, the whole skinhead scene and all that, so it just didn't look good. And, so, we were dodging the cops, and life seemed good for me and my brother. We had cars and lots of money, and we were living the dream.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
But that was short-lived, and our world was, getting ready to get turned over again. So my dad would be gone for days at a time. And me and my brother were sleeping in the motel. My dad was gone, and the DEA kicked the motel door down, beat the shit out of us, and we were just kids sleeping at the time. And they had us cuffed up, threatening us to tell them where my dad was, and we were talking, playing dumb. We thought we were solid little thugs already, and excuse my language, screw the police. We thought we were little badass kids at the time, and they ended up finding a gun in my truck. So, they were threatening me, to tell them where my dad's at, or they were going to take me to jail and this and that. And, I basically just held my mud, and next thing you know, my grandparents are there again to take us back. So now my dad's on the run, so we end up having to go back to my grandparents. And, my grandpa's a Christian, but he was, cussing the cops out and what they did to us and stuff. It was all bad. They came dressed as ninjas and flipped the mattress off the bed and, like, with me on it, and just beat the crap out of us like we were adults. They didn't even know who we were. It was pretty crazy, though. And then the school stabbing ended up catching up to me soon, and a stolen car warrant. So I ended up going to juvie for a little bit. And my grandparents, I sat there in juvie for a little bit, and then my grandparents eventually, they ended up not filing charges on the stabbing, and I ended up getting probation for the stolen car. And eventually, my grandparents were able to take me home again. So by this time, I was pretty much about 16 and had a serious drug problem and was hooked on money and, the whole gangster life and image and all that good stuff to go with it. And I started hanging out with dudes that were involved in the gang scene around that time. And so I had my boys that I kicked it with back then, my buddy Ronnie, Ray, and my homeboy Jailbird at the time. At the time, really, none of us were penile. We were all just coming up. And then Jailbird was my boy, and he ended up becoming penile first and was one of the dudes that brought me in later. So it was Jailbird, Wicked, and Scottish who ended up jumping me in later. And then it was like kind of ironic, like I told you before, is, Jailbird ended up getting murdered in 2007. And, the cops had me under investigation for allegedly ordering his murder. And, the case is still cold right now, but it was just ironic that, this is the dude that brought me in, and they're claiming that I murdered the dude. It was just crazy. But, they had a couple dudes when this case in 2010 came about, that flipped and, was trying to make up stories or whatever. But anyway, so back in that time era, like I said, I got jumped in, and that's pretty much where the journey began, And like from then on, it was just nonstop, Started hanging out, obviously getting involved in the whole gang scene once I started dating my girl at the time, which was my homeboy DJ's sister. DJ was locked up still, when me and her first got together. He got out probably a few months later. But I'd been staying at her house, and I kicked it tough with her dad. And, her dad was in the business, he was slinging dope, and, he was all involved in lots of different things. And that was kind of one of the penile spots, which, before my mom's ended up becoming the second spot down the road. But that's a whole different story. But basically, this pad, though, that was one of the first spots. And her dad had been having some issues with one of his dope connections, which was a paisa who lived down the street. And this dude slung lots of pounds. He was tipped up, though. He was with the cartel or something to do with, some other branch or whatever. So we were trying to be smart about it, to make sure that my girl's dad didn't get caught up or nothing. So, at first we were almost, thinking about if we had to take this dude out or not because, the repercussions. And so we decided, her dad decided that he didn't want to do that, so we ended up coming up with a plan to rob him and make it look like it was, like it was a set-up robbery, basically. And so Dave set the robbery up. He set the deal up with the dude, and the dude ends up coming over to the pad, and once he was in the pad, me and the homeboy Jaybird, came mobbing in the front door, masked up, sawed-off street sweeper, which I had at the time, which that was like one of my favorite guns of all time. And Jaybird, we were kind of short on time. It was early in the morning, and all we could get him was a BB gun just to make it look good. But, obviously what I had was good. And and it was early in the morning. We couldn't really go nowhere else to get any other guns and stuff. So we made dude get down, along with my girl's dad and her mom. You know, we made it look good. Basically laid the whole pad down. We duct taped everybody up to make it look good. And, you know, we took the homeboy, you know, his wallet, took his her mom's purse, took everything, and then we got all the loot. And me and Jaybird bounced. And we had already had a plan to meet at my mom's spot, you know, so we could split everything up later on. And this was just one day, you know, in the life as we had it really then. And we ended up getting the same dude later, which is a whole different story. But the homeboy kept messing around with him because, you know, the dude thought that we had all gotten robbed with him and stuff. So he thought it was legit. So he kept dealing with my buddy. Anyway, he ended up getting skimpy down the road, and you know, my girl's dad started getting kind of frustrated or whatever. So we were like, all right, well, let's get his ass again. And you know, the dude knew the spot that we lived in and stuff, and he knew that, you know, we had a lot of dudes running in and out of there, and like he kind of was paranoid to come back, and because he would never do deals there after the first time. You know, he always wanted to meet somewhere in public or, you know, whatever. Well, the homeboy had a garage that was down in the alley. This is in Anaheim, right off Harbor Boulevard. And he had a garage that was in the alley. And everybody knew that in that alley, like, it didn't connect to the apartments at all. You had to, like, come out of the apartment and go down through the alley to get to the garage. And the homeboy had a drum set in there. That was pretty much all that was in there. But what this dude didn't know is we had an escape hatch in this apartment, you know, that was in the closet of the upstairs apartment that went down into this specific garage. And you know, nobody knew that. That was our little getaway. If the cops ever came, we could run down the little hatch and get out back through the alley. So he ended up talking the dude into meeting us in the garage. You know, the dude was leery at first, but when he pulled down the alley, he looked in the garage and you could see nobody's in there. You know,
this call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Like, he could tell the only one in there was my girl's dad, and he was by himself, you know. And, you know, my girl's dad, keep in mind, he didn't look like a gangster at all. He kind of looked like a square, no tattoos, no nothing. But he just knew a lot of people that, you know, were thugs and shit at the time. But so the dude pulls his car in the garage, and the homeboy shuts the door. And, you know, a couple minutes later, we were waiting for the little sign, and, you know, so he does a little whistle, and next thing you know, we popped the hatch door and opened up. We were masked up again. Ended up dropping down inside there, you know, with our shotguns, and the homeboy had a gun. And so dude just panics, like his eyes lit up, basically. He knew he was caught again, and he knew what time it was. But we weren't trying to play it off this time, though, because, you know, he basically was being told what he was being robbed for this time. And so I had homeboy duct tape his hands and made him get into the trunk of the car because he pulled his car in the garage. So I put dude in the trunk of the car. And all I'm going to say is he's lucky that the homeboy asked me not to do what I had planned because the dude was threatening us for retaliation and talking about our families and all kinds of crazy shit. So, like, I didn't want to take no chances. But I guess the dude's wife and everybody knew that he was dealing with homeboy, so he didn't want to do what I wanted to do. And so anyway, so the homeboy said no, just leave it alone, just we'll get him out of here or whatever. So basically, I just drove the car off and drove it down to the end of the street because the dude lived around the corner. Just basically left him there in the trunk and walked back to the house. And then we grabbed everything and ended up splitting over to my house and splitting it up and stuff. And you know, we basically didn't care, you know, who anybody was. We were getting ours, and like we were, you know, pretty much just doing whatever we wanted at the time. And you know, this is like before I became P&I, so I was kind of just building my reputation and stuff, and you know, carrying on, doing things or whatever. And plus, like I said, my girl's brother, you know, was P&I, and she was talking to him on the phone all the time when he was locked up. And, you know, I was talking to him too and stuff, and he'd been hearing about me and, you know, talking and stuff. And So that's just a couple of stories, a couple of things that happened. So basically, I was out there helping the homeboy, helping his dad survive, because, he didn't really have anybody out there helping him at the time. And I was living at the house at the time. And so we were just basically robbing every day to survive and
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I was just doing the most. And so there's another story of incident, and I can give you an example of how we were living. So there's another dude that we were dealing with that was he was shorting my girl's dad on drug deals and stuff. So I told him, like, all right, let's get him, So we met the dude at a liquor store down the street from the house, and we get there, and the dude was on edge from the gate, when he seen us, and when he seen me particularly. But, he had this dude with him in the back seat. Actually, he was in the front seat at first. He ended up getting in the back seat, but this dude's long hair. He's all tatted up. Looked like he'd just gotten out of prison and stuff. And so we had him get in the back seat, and then I got in the back seat with him, and, my girl's dad got up in the front. And keep in mind, the dude in the front seat that was driving, this was a Geo Storm of all cars. And it was funny as hell, though, because this dude could barely fit behind the wheel. He was probably at least 400 pounds. And so we get in the car and we tell him, all right, I'm just drive back towards the pad, and, we'll do the transaction along the way. Well, the dude that was driving, he was kind of leery already. So we ended up nicknaming this dude Uncle Hinky down the road. That was like an inside joke, which you'll find out about later, but you'll understand more later. But so, the dude's he's asking us right away to see the money. And I'm like, dude, don't trip, just drive, man, I got you. So we drive off, and I reach in my phone pocket of my Dickies, and I pull out a bandana, which I had my 38 Smith & Wesson wrapped in there. And so I pulled it on the dude in the back seat that was next to me at first. And the dude looked like a thug, and he started crying for me not to shoot him, right away. He was on it. So I said, look, dude, just put your hands on the headrest and, just keep your mouth shut and mind your business. It's personal. It's got nothing to do with you, And, well, the dude, Uncle Hinky, he got scared and he took off down Harbor Boulevard, honking and driving erratically, honking, like slamming the brakes, peeling out, like driving, erratic, trying to get the cops' attention if there were any around. And keep in mind, he's heading straight for the cop shop, which is on Harbor Boulevard. And the homeboy that I was with, my girl's dad, he ended up freezing up in the front seat on me. He didn't know what to do, so I reached forward and I smacked this dude in the head with the gun at first, the dude driving, and the dude's leaking. I mean, it didn't even barely faze him. The dude's leaking, and he's still doing the same thing. He's driving erratic, driving all crazy, and so I hit him again. And I stunned him a little bit this time, but he's still driving crazy. And like we're pretty much halfway down Harbor to where the police station's at on Harbor Boulevard. So now this time my girl's dad, he panics and freezes up on me. He don't know what to do. So I'm freaking out now too because I'm in the back seat. I'm on the right side. The dude with long hair is on the left side behind the driver. So now I'm going to have to bust a move because dude's froze up in the front of me. So I pull out a buck knife that I had in my other pocket, and I jumped up in the between the two seats, and I stuck this buck knife in the dude's leg, the fat dude's leg. And as I did that, I grabbed the e-brake. So keep in mind, we're on Harbor Boulevard, and we just slid out sideways in the middle of the harbor. And so I'm like pushing, the homeboy still froze. I had to literally push him out of the car, like, dude, what are you doing? Get out, let me out. And he's freaking out, and the dude's still got the knife stuck in his leg, and so the homeboy gets out, and I jump through and get out, and we came here to get something, so I got the gun drawn on dude, and I'm like, dude, just give me this, and it's gonna be all bad for you. So the dude hands me this fanny pack, and we take off running. We run all the way to the homeboy's pad, which wasn't far from there because we'd already went kind of halfway down Harbor Boulevard. And once we get to the house and you know, we bust out all the stuff. We bust out the little fanny pack. There was a couple bucks in there, and you know, so all along, you know, this dude had intended on burning us because we got to the house and the 2 ounces that it was supposed to be was 2 ounces of cut. So basically, all along, this dude had planned on burning us. So that's pretty much why we called him Uncle Hinky, you know, at the end of the day. But it was kind of a joke. And, you know, I'm just glad, honestly, though, that the dude gave me, you know, ended up giving it up because, you know, I'd hate to be sitting in court, you know, a year or two later after shooting this dude and then find out, you know, I killed this dude for a couple ounces of cut. That would have been a bad story all along, you know. But, so, anyway, my girl's, you know, he was calling us and stuff, and he was running his mouth trying to, like, talk trash to us and stuff, and we just kind of ignored him. I actually joked with him, told him I wanted my buck knife back, which was kind of another little inside joke we all had. But, you know, my brother...
You have 60 seconds remaining.
So my brother's girl, he ended up getting out of prison. So anyway, as I was saying earlier, my girl that I was with at the time, actually I got introduced to her through Jailbird and Ray Ray, which they knew her because of the homeboy Wicked, which is my girl's brother. He just gotten out of jail. And so I remember, so we were all kicking it. It was me, Jailbird, Wicked, Stato, which is Popeye's first girl that has Popeye's little son. We all hung out that day at the spot. And obviously I'd been putting it down, so all of them we're all out in the living room, and, you know, my father-in-law to be at the time was, you know, he was telling them all stories about all this stuff that him and I had done. There was other stuff too. There's a lot of other stuff that, you know, had went on or whatever. And so basically he's just putting me out there, putting my name out there, and you know, that I was doing big things or whatever, and been putting it down. And I guess they had already talked, and they had wanted to bring me in. So Wicked ended up only being out for about 2 days, I believe was all it was. And so he wasn't out very long. Well, we proceeded with me being brought in with Popeye and all the other fellas at the time, bless me, which they were all in the county jail at the time. And everybody had spoken highly of me. And like I said, I was already going by the name Bullet Head because I had actually gotten a bullet lodged in my head from a shootout the year before with a family member. I'm not going to put him out there, but that's a whole other story. But in a nutshell, the bullet was a ricochet from my own gun. I was unloading a clip on a car full of dudes that shot at us prior to this, and my gun jammed. So I was in the back seat, and I'm, you know, trying to lock and load this thing, and it was jammed up. And I got the bullet out of there, and I cocked it again, and it was still jamming. So I'm going back and forth trying to get it unjammed. It ended up going off. It was just one of those little 25 auto kind of fit in your front pocket, and it ricocheted and hit me in the head. And so I had a warrant at the time, so it went right under the side of my skull, right on the side, on my right side. And I'd had a warrant at the time, and, you know, everybody said, dude, you can't go to the hospital, you're going to jail, because, you know, doctors had to report knife wounds or gunshot wounds, which we all know this. So I wrote it out for the night, and, you know, I'm not going to lie, I was scared to death. I thought I was going to die, or I could go to sleep and die or something. And I just left it alone, man, and you know, later on down the road, I ended up getting busted, and I had it checked out. And they ended up saying that it was better off just to leave it alone. And I remember some of the skull fragments and stuff had popped out, like splinters and stuff had popped out, you know, over the years. And actually that bullet, no joke, it just popped out 2 years ago, which was 27 years later from the incident. And so they, like I said, I had already been called Bullet Head based on that that incident or whatever. So I ended up going out. I got invited to go to the club with Jailbird and Scotty Collins, which was from Long Beach, and Peni Scottish from Orange County. And we all got drunk, And this wasn't the Club Mesa. This was just some other club we went to. I don't really remember what the name of it was. But so we ended up going to the club, and then we went back to my mom's house in Anaheim, which was like another hangout spot, which is the same type of story. The garage was detached, from the house. And, I didn't even honestly know at the time what was going on. It just kind of happened. But, Scotty had told my girl to go in the house so we could talk. So she splits and goes upstairs, and I was already drunk. I'm not going to lie. I drank a lot that night. And trust me, though, I woke up real quick, or I got woke up real quick. But so I thought I was in trouble because Scotty said, I heard you're a tough guy. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, are you tripping or what? I didn't know what was up. I was kind of threw me for a loop for a second. So I thought I was just going to get jumped or something, or maybe I messed up along the way, or I honestly didn't know really what was going on. Like I said, I had been drinking and stuff. And so, I responded by saying, I ain't no bully, but I ain't no punk either. And that's when Jailbird ended up sliding me from behind. And like I said, I woke up quick and started getting on his ass. And so me and him are going, and that's when I realized that, I was getting packed out. And, I can fight a little bit, don't get me wrong, but, I had 3 dudes on me, so, I managed to stay on my feet and basically fought for my life because, I thought at first I had messed up or something. I wasn't really sure. And, so I ended up finally hitting down, after a few more blows and kicks, they stopped. I was leaking, cracked my nose, had a couple little cuts on. And, but so was my homeboy Jailbird at least, so I didn't feel as bad.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
And that was when, after that, they stood me up, we got cleaned off, and that was when Scott has pretty much told me, like, that's right, homeboy, welcome to the family, you're P9 now. And we all shook hands and hugged and got smashed drunk, and the rest of the night and the next morning, it was official, man. I was Bullet from P9. And